How you guys doing today? It's Anthony Gangi. Welcome to another episode of Tier Talk. Guys, interesting case coming out of San Antonio. So San Antonio, hot car mystery, 2 children dead, mother's story questioned. So what do we know so far is the incident happened in the Alamo Ranch area on the far west side of San Antonio. The 2 children are a 6-year-old boy and a 3-year-old girl. They were found unresponsive in a vehicle. The mother reported they were left in a hot car. Sheriff Javier Salazar has publicly said there are inconsistencies between the mother's version of events and what evidence is currently showing. The mother claims she last saw the kids in the house around 10 a.m. and then later found them around 3 p.m. in the car. That's a 5-hour gap. First responders were called at about 3 p.m. Deputies and paramedics attempted CPR, but the children were pronounced dead at the scene. Child Protective Services had previously been involved with the home. There were prior concerns, according to Sheriff Salazar. So we also have prior involvement with CPS, and investigators have asked for surveillance or video footage from neighbors for the time frame between 10 a.m. to 3 p.m. to help clear up what happened. So there's a lot that we still have left to figure out. So exactly how long the children were in the vehicle. It isn't confirmed whether the timeline 10 a.m. to 3 p.m. is accurate. What physical evidence has been collected? What's the temperature inside the car? We need biological and forensic evidence, all that stuff. And exactly what evidence conflicts with the mother's story. So we got some inconsistencies. Whether there were signs of medical distress before being in the car, like pre-existing conditions, not yet known. And whether the mother will face criminal charges, and if so, what charges? Negligence, manslaughter, etc. No charges reported yet as of the latest, and how the mother's statements have changed if they have in interviews. Now, guys, I have a lot of questions that I also would like to see covered, but I want to show you something from the news real quick, and then I'm going to come back to me, and I'm going to give you a quick narrative again, and then I got some bullets I feel that we're going to need answers to as we start to move forward in this story. And then eventually later in the week, I'm probably going to have Pangaro come on. He's a retired lieutenant detective, and we're going to discuss some more of this because I believe this case is going to be a pretty popular case. I mean, 2 dead children, 1 6, 1 3 in a car. Mother's story is already inconsistent. It reminds us of the Emmanuel Harrow, Rebecca Harrow case. I mean, what's going on with children nowadays? Let me go ahead and put this video up. It's coming from the scene. Bear with me. I'm going to mute myself.
You ready? Okay. This afternoon, about 3:25, we got a call out here for initially a report of hot car deaths involving 2 children, approximately 3 years old and 6 years old, siblings who the initial story that we were given, or the story that we have been given, I should say, was that the 2 children were in the car. They were found in the car by their mother. Apparently, the children were at some point brought into the home, and when our first responding deputy arrived on scene, he made every effort to begin life-saving efforts on the children at the same time. What's described to me is that the deputy was simultaneously trying to perform CPR on both children, but unfortunately was not successful to that point. EMS arrived shortly thereafter, and unfortunately the children were pronounced deceased here on scene. As I mentioned, the initial report was that the children were left in the car. However, I can tell you, without going into too much detail, unfortunately, I'm not able to go into too much detail. There just are some inconsistencies with the story that we're being given that at present, I'm not confident enough to give you all that that's definitively what happened. So at this point, we've taken the mother of the 2 children downtown. She's being questioned at present. She is being mostly cooperative with us at this point. And so what we're hoping for is that in talking to her, it may be able to shed some more light on the situation. But, as I mentioned, with the inconsistencies that I'm seeing in the story and in some of the evidence, we're just not prepared to say that that's exactly what happened. Esta tarde, aproximadamente las 3:25 de la tarde, nosotros recibimos una llamada por un reporte de 2 niños que fueron encontrados muertos en un carro. Los niños de 3 y 6 años de edad se aparenta que fueron encontrados por la mamá, que ella, por la historia que nos están dando, la mamá encontró a los 2 niños en el carro, se los llevó adentro de la casa y luego ya cuando nuestros oficiales llegaron, ellos encontraron con los 2 niños heridos, sufriendo de algo, una condición médica grave. El oficial empezó a intentar primeros auxilios, pero no tuvo éxito, sino que cuando llegaron los bomberos, ellos también intentaron, no tuvieron éxito y los niños ya los declararon muertos en ese rato. Nosotros ahorita, la evidencia que nosotros estamos encontrando en la escena de los hechos, no es un poco, la evidencia es un poco inconsistente con lo que nos están diciendo. Entonces, para ahorita no estamos preparados para decir definitivamente que eso fue lo que pasó. Ahorita nosotros estamos hablando con la madre en nuestras oficinas y ya después ojalá vamos a seguir dando más información con más detalle, pero por ahorita no se puede decir por cierto qué es lo que pasó.
About how long do you think?
Well, so according to the initial information that we have, the last time the mom reports having seen the children was about 10 o'clock this morning when she fell asleep. And then around 3 o'clock is when the children were found, reportedly. But again, with some of the details that we're seeing, just something's not adding up with this case. And so while I'm certainly not prepared to say we're going to be making any arrests at this point, right now, it's just too soon to tell.
Is she the only one there at the residence?
From my understanding right now, from what we're gathering, there's the mom and the 2 children. And the last time that the children were seen was inside the residence. But then when she reports finding them was after 3 p.m. in the car.
Is the mother a person of interest or suspect at this time?
Well, certainly she's a person of interest. I mean, being that she's the last person to have reportedly seen these children alive, certainly that certainly puts her as a person of interest. Now, I say that with some caveat that obviously, as you know, the terms person of interest and suspect are not used interchangeably. Person of interest simply means we want to talk to somebody more in connection with this case. But, if it comes to the point where we're considering her or anybody else a suspect, we will certainly be letting everybody know.
Are you able to elaborate on the inconsistency?
No, at this point, I'm just not comfortable elaborating too much, but we're finding some things that just are not adding up. And certainly anytime, obviously any loss of life is extremely tragic. When you're talking about, a death involving 2 children, the deaths of 2 children, certainly we want to handle that case to the nth degree as far as detail goes. As soon as we're able to get more information that we can release, we absolutely will. We are asking anybody with information, anybody within the neighborhood, to please give us a call if you have more information on what may have occurred today or any past history. There are some early indicators that there had been some issues with regard to this family involving possibly the Bexar County Sheriff's Office and possibly calls to CPS. And so again, anybody that may have information to share or video of the area around that time, anytime between 10 a.m. this morning and 3 p.m. this afternoon, please give us a call, 210-335-6000. You can also email us at bcsotips@bear.org, and you can remain anonymous if you do so choose to call us or to send us an email.
I was going to ask you how many times BCSO has been out to this home.
I don't know that we've physically been out to this home a whole lot of times, but from what we can find, there's at least one call for service that involved CPS having become involved. And obviously anytime CPS becomes involved, it's because there's, suspicions of some sort of child neglect going on. So right now we're going through the records. We're still waiting on the medical examiner to arrive. The CPS investigator just arrived on scene. And so we're right now at present comparing notes to see what can be found.
The 2 people that died, was it a little boy or a girl?
I believe it's a little boy and a little girl. I believe the little boy is about 6 years old, and the little girl is 3 years old. And my understanding is that the little boy, the 6-year-old, is autistic.
Was the call for service this year regarding CPS or
It was at sometime prior, but I don't recall if it was this year or in years past. But my understanding is that this family has only been living here for about 14 months.
Did deputies or were deputies able to get a temperature check inside the car to see how hot it was?
No, at present I don't have any information that they obtained a temperature check. But when the deputies arrived, the children had already been taken inside the residence. But I don't know what, if anything, was checked on the car at this point.
And who removed them from the vehicle? The mother?
That's the report that we're being given, is that the mother removed them from the car and took them inside. But again, that's where any video that the neighbors may be able to share with us would be certainly crucial. Whether it shows, that activity taking place, her coming out and taking those kids out of the car, or of course, obviously, absence of any video of that occurring could also be equally telling.
¿Nos podría repetir en español
All right, so guys, there's a lot there. I'm assuming they believe that maybe could have been staged, maybe. I mean, there's a context that Child Protective Services has a history with this house. So I'm thinking that maybe they're believing that the kids may not have died in the car. Maybe that they were already dead and maybe they were put in the car to stage it. But either way, I want to run through the narrative real quick. And I believe I came up with probably about 20 areas that we together are going to want to have answers to. And I think this will be also good discussions moving forward as this case evolves. I'll bring in a few of my repeated guests. I'll bring in Joe Pangaro. I'll try to bring on Gary York. I'll try to bring on Russ. I'll also try to bring on Denise. But let's go ahead and just run this narrative one more time. And then I'm going to hit the areas that I feel we're going to have to figure out. And I'm going to do both sides. I'm going to do it as if it was hot car death. But I'm also going to have some concerns in case it wasn't, and this could have been staged. So it's sweltering Saturday in Bexar County, Texas, when a mother dialed 911 around 3 p.m. The emergency was urgent and heartbreaking. Her 2 children, a 6-year-old boy and a 3-year-old girl, were unresponsive in her vehicle, parked outside the family's home in the quiet Alamo Ranch neighborhood. First responders rushed to the 7600 block of Chancery Gate. Paramedics attempted CPR on both children, but the heat had already taken its toll. Despite every effort, the siblings were pronounced dead at the scene. The mother's account, the mother told investigators that she had last seen her children inside the home earlier that morning around 10 a.m. Several hours later, she claimed she discovered them in the car. That's 5 hours. 5 hours. How do you not know where your 6-year-old and your 3-year-old are for 5 hours? Sheriff Javier Salazar of the Bexar County Sheriff's Office has stated that there are inconsistencies between the mother's account and the physical evidence. And I believe if the mother is saying they may have died in the car, maybe that's a conflict. Maybe they feel that the death may not have happened in the car. It could be a staging area. I'm only guessing. Exactly what doesn't line up has not been revealed, but enough questions have arisen for deputies to treat her as a person of interest. Now, deputies taped off the neighborhood and began canvassing for surveillance footage between 10 a.m. and 3 p.m. That's important, right? To see what happened around those times. Did someone brought those kids to the car? Did she even take the kids out if that was part of her story? So they're going to look to see what happened on that time frame. And by the way, guys, neighborhoods, sure, there's a lot of ring cameras. Sure, there's a lot of cameras out there that they're able to pull from. CPS and the medical examiner were both called in. While heat exposure is presumed, the official cause of death will come from autopsy results. So here's what we got that remains unknown. We got the timeline. Were the children really last seen inside the home at 10 a.m. or were they already in the vehicle earlier? Cause of death, was heat stroke the sole factor, or did another medical issue or circumstance play a role? Could the hot car death be a stage? Something that could have been staged afterwards. Mother's role. Is this negligence, deception, or something darker? Or is she a grieving parent under suspicion? Now, guys, before I get to the key questions, I do want to talk a little bit about, I took notes for why cars get deadly hot, just so we have it in our background. So if they do talk about it, these are the things that the investigation is going to look for if the children died in the vehicle. So a parked car in the sun acts like a greenhouse. Heat is trapped inside. Even on a mild 70 to 75 degree Fahrenheit or 21 to 24 degrees Celsius, on that type of day, the inside of a car can reach 100 degrees Fahrenheit or 38 degrees Celsius in 20 minutes. On hotter days, it can pass to about 120 to 130 degrees Fahrenheit or 49 to 54 degrees Celsius very quickly. Why children are at greater risk is a child's body temperature rises 3 to 5 times faster than an adult. Heat stroke becomes deadly when the body reaches 107 degrees Fahrenheit or 41.6 degrees Celsius. And most victims of hot car deaths are children under 5 years old. Guys, if you know a little bit more about this, please add to the comments. I'll see if I could try to get someone from the medical profession as well. But we'll do that more when the case evolves. And why is the term hot car death used in the media? It's a short, direct phrase that captures both the tragedy and the preventable cause. Used by public safety campaigns, look before you lock, and researchers tracking annual statistics. And it highlights that the car itself isn't inherently dangerous. It's the heat buildup inside that makes it deadly. Now, if it was staged, I have some areas here that I want to discuss, but then I'm going to explore some more as we go through the questions. But real quick, stage would mean someone intentionally manipulated the situation to make it appear that the child or children died from heat exposure in a hot car when really that cause was different, or that the person responsible wants to shift blame or cover up something else, like a medical issue, foul play, neglect, etc. And again, the way the sheriff came out at the very beginning, I feel that he wanted to tell us that maybe the deaths didn't happen in the car, but obviously he couldn't. Right now, they're still investigating. So what investigators will look for to determine if it was staged? To substantiate a staging claim, investigators will search for inconsistency or physical evidence that doesn't align with the narrative. So what are the examples? So you got the forensic evidence that contradicts claim times. So body temperature at discovery, medical decay, or rigor mortis timing. Then you have surveillance footage. As he said, he's going to try to go around the neighborhood to see what footage is available. That's showing timeline events that conflict with accounts. So when the children were last seen, when the car was used, etc. So again, when they're interviewing the mother, maybe she's pretty comfortable giving a story when it's open and there's no facts out there. But then all of a sudden, when facts start to come into play, then there's another side of the narrative. Now her story starts to become a bit inconsistent. And then you got the witness statements that dispute the person's story if there are witnesses. Then you got the physical evidence from the vehicle's door or lock damage, any signs of struggle, whether the car was locked or unlocked, whether the windows or doors were opened or closed. Maybe the 6-year-old, when it starts getting hot, they're banging on the window. They're trying to break the window open or something, or maybe they slowly passed out. But you would assume that maybe it would get to a point where maybe the kids could try to kick the door open. I mean, we don't know. But that makes sense, something to look for. Medical records. Did the children have underlying health issues that could have caused sudden death? Are there signs of poisoning, trauma, or other injuries? That's going to be interesting. And behavior of the caregiver or parent. Did they delay calling for help? Did their story change over time? Are there signs of concealment, trying to mislead investigators? So maybe if they're saying it's staged, maybe the children died somewhere around 10. Then she's thinking, oh, what should I do? What should I do? And then 5 hours later, she decides to call for help, try to call 911 to get the paramedics there. I mean, that could be truthful. That could be, a way she tried to stage it. But then again, how do you not know where your children are for 5 hours? That's going to be hard for you to explain. And I think that would have been a question that one of the detectives would have asked her. You said 10 a.m. to 3 p.m. The last time we saw them was 10 a.m. They're 6 and 3 years old. How do you explain that gap? And I think that's where you may see some backpedaling. And then why staging hot car deaths is hard, legally and forensically. Heat stroke has fairly specific medical and physical markers. Matching these markers consistently is difficult to fake. Time of death estimation can often be compared against heat exposure levels, body core temperatures, etc. And a stage death must account for many variables: heat inside the car, ambient temperature outside, window openings or closedness, time of exposure, and small errors often reveal the truth. And what the research and cases say: most research on hot car deaths paint towards unintentional memory lapses, sometimes called forgotten baby syndrome, rather than intentional acts. Forensic or legal claims of staging are much less common. They require concrete evidence beyond just the story doesn't add up. And advocacy groups and cognitive scientists emphasize that routine disruptions and stress can lead to tragic oversight, which are often misinterpreted in the media or public discourse like negligence or intentional wrongdoing. So I'm not saying this person planned it, but if they did, maybe something happened and out of impulse, this is what they decided to do at the last minute. So maybe some camera footage will see when those children were brought to the car, if they walked there on their own or did someone bring them in the car. That would be very interesting. But maybe, as it said here, hot car deaths, children have been killed that way. They're a little bit more forgiving on the parents or the parent. So maybe that was just a plan. But having said that, there's still a lot here to find out. So these are the questions that I think we will have as this case develops, and I'll be bringing people onto the show to discuss it. But right now, the questions are going to you guys, the audience. First question I got is: should parents who cause hot car deaths always face criminal charges, or does intent matter for most? So now, guys, let's treat that first as if this is really what happened. I mean, how do we explain the 5-hour gap? We don't know yet. But let's just say this really was a hot car death. And as we progress later on, I'm going to go back to some staging questions. So the argument for the charges would be ensures accountability, right? We want accountability for what happened, sets deterrence, and underscores duty of care for children. Arguments against charges: parents has already suffered the ultimate loss, no deterrent effect if truly accidental. Intent versus negligence is often the dividing line. Was the parent careless? So do we have criminal negligence, or forgetful, which is a civil tragedy? And states vary. Some prosecutors pursue charges aggressively. Others show compassion. Now, number 2, how do prosecutors decide between tragic accident versus criminal act? So again, you got the timeline reconstruction. So cell phone records, vehicle forensics, and neighbors' testimonies are crucial. And I think, surveillance, all that stuff plays into that. Past history: any child protective service reports, prior neglect incidents, or substance abuse concerns raise criminal suspicion. Substance abuse concerns. Again, how do you explain 5 hours? Was she on something and then just passed out? Is that possible? I mean, you got negligence there, but it removes somewhat of a murder charge, but you still got negligence. But could she have been on something and she just passed out for 5 hours? Behavior after discovery: did the caregiver call 911 immediately, attempt CPR, or delay? It did say that she may have pulled him out of the car, so maybe she was on something, woke up 5 hours later. Where were they? Ran to the car and saw them in the car, like, oh my God, and pulled them out and tried to save them. So again, you got a mother that may be battling some type of drug history, which you really shouldn't be doing in front of children anyway. But she's trying to make the effort to clean it up and called CPR immediately. Called the 911 immediately. Let's see. Then you got: if inconsistencies grow between interviews, suspicion shifts to intentionality. Now, mind you, if she was on something, it would be best for her to admit that. You know what? I'm sorry. For 5 hours, I was just not there. I was on something. But at this point here, once I came to, I saw that they weren't in the home. I screamed for them. I yelled for them. And then I went to the car, and that's where they were. And I tried to bring them back. And that's going to matter. I mean, at this point, I'd rather have her admit to the drug use and then say what you try to do as trying to lie about it and try to cover it up. And then the whole situation looks like it's staged, like the kids were planted there. But I wanted to talk about something: the difference between negligence and recklessness, because when kids are trapped in a car, Sometimes it could count as negligence, and sometimes it could count as recklessness. Recklessness actually being the more severe of the charge. But if it's negligence, the definition is failure to exercise the level of care a reasonable person would in the same situation. So the key idea is the harm was foreseeable, but not necessarily intended. So in a hot car case, a parent forgets their child's in the back seat because of a distraction or a break in routine. They didn't intend harm, but a reasonable parent would have taken steps to prevent it. Legal consequences can lead to criminally negligent homicide or child endangerment charges, less severe than manslaughter. Recklessness is a bit different. Conscious disregard of a substantial and unjustifiable risk. Key idea, the person knew the risk and chose to ignore it. So in a hot car case, a parent knowingly leaves children in the car to run errands, thinking I'll only be a few minutes. So they know the consequences, but they're still going to run the errand. Or they leave the children unattended despite knowing how hot it is outside. Legal consequences more likely to result in manslaughter or murder by depraved indifference or extreme cases. Key difference in court: negligence, they should have known better. Recklessness, they knew the dangers and ignored it. Prosecutors usually push for recklessness if they believe there was awareness of risk. Mother admitted she knew the car was hot but left them there. That would be an example. And they pursued negligence if it appears to be a tragic lapse in judgment. Okay, so now, next set of questions we may have. Could CPS findings influence whether charges are pursued? CPS can reveal patterns of neglect, unsafe home conditions, or prior interventions. Even if the hot car death were an accident, CPS findings could support criminal charges if neglect is systemic. Systemic. That's the word I want. So if neglect is systemic. CPS reports also affect whether surviving siblings, if any, remain in parental custody. Number 4, how do people explain forgotten baby syndrome or lapses in memory that lead to hot car deaths? Neurologists describe it as a habit memory override, routine autopilot. It erases awareness of a child in the car. Most common in distracted parents, those under stress or when daily routines shift. High-profile cases have proven parents can be loving, attentive, and still fall victim to this lapse, and public perception often struggles. Public perception often struggles. People find it inconceivable, which complicates jury pools. Hey, guys, the unique thing about all this right now is, was this intentional? Was it negligence? Now, granted, she's getting high in the house. That's still recklessness because the kids, they shouldn't be around that. You have responsibility. So if that's the case and she did pass out and, on some type of drug use, and she does the right thing by trying to get the kids 5 hours later out of the vehicle, if that's the case, because again, how do you not know where your kids are for 5 hours? It's going to be recklessness if you were on something, because doing that is definitely some level of child endangerment. Doing that in a house full of kids, a 6-year-old and a 3-year-old, if that's the case, we don't know. Could the reported inconsistency suggest stress, panic, or deception? Stress reaction. Trauma victims often give disjointed timelines. Deception. Contradictory details that shield responsibility. For example, I thought they were inside the house. May signal a cover-up. Again, it's 5 hours of not seeing your 6-year-old and your 3-year-old. Investigators cross-reference statements with forensics. Does what she say match physical evidence? And Salazar going public with inconsistencies suggests the gaps are not minor. Word choice implies significance. What evidence might conflict with her story? Car's internal temperature logs or black box data showing door activity. Autopsy findings on time of death, dehydration or struggle. Surveillance or Ring doorbell video showing children outside earlier than claimed. Neighbors' testimony, were kids seen wandering unsupervised? And phone records, was the mother distracted, text calls during the window of time? Again, that's 5 hours. Could there be a chance that, I know they were in the car, but could she have been by a neighbor's house? Could she have been somewhere where she wasn't properly supervising the kids? Could she have left them home? Maybe thought they were secured and ran out. I mean, 5 hours. We have to find out what happened in those 5 hours. Now, how do investigators differentiate? How they tell the difference between a cover-up and trauma. Consistency across retellings. Trauma can scatter memory, but shouldn't drastically alter timelines. Physical plausibility. If the autopsy places death around noon, but she claims they were alive until 3 p.m., deception is likely. And behavioral cues. Hesitation, evasive answers, or over-explaining raised flags, and cooperation level. Fully cooperative parents are viewed differently than defensive, hostile, or silent ones. Does the presence of inconsistencies automatically point towards guilt? Not always. Grief and shock can distort recall. However, key inconsistencies around timeline, discovery, or efforts to help the children carry more weight. And investigators will separate fog of trauma errors, so exact minutes, small details, from major contradictions, so location, actions, and awareness. And again, that makes a lot of sense. When you're under stress, you're going to make small errors, but certain things you shouldn't make mistake of are again, location, where it was, how this happened, but a 5-hour gap in time. And guys, I learn a lot when I do my research on these things. I'm getting better at this craft. I like to think so. Additional critical questions. How much responsibility does society bear for prevention? So rear seat reminders are mandated in many new cars, but older vehicles lack them. Should legislation require retrofit technology or public campaigns? And how much is a systemic issue versus individual accountability? What role does community surveillance play in solving these cases? So doorbell cameras and neighborhood surveillance often make or break timelines. Sheriff's direct appeal to residents underscores reliance on community technology and raises privacy versus safety debates. How much surveillance is enough? At this point, there's surveillance everywhere. Let's take a look at the cameras. Let's see whose property can actually see hers from different angles. How do juries react to accident versus crime? Cases involving children. Jurors may project their own parenting fears and imagine it could have been me. So there's a little bit of sympathy there if it makes sense, if it's reasonable. Others may adapt a zero-tolerance view, leaving kids in a car is inexcusable, if that's the case, if that's what happened. Emotional weight of child death makes jury selection delicate and outcomes unpredictable. And again, 5-hour gap. What were you doing in those 5 hours? How does media coverage shape public perception? So early framing. Do we have a tragic accident versus suspicious inconsistencies? And I'm going to tell you something. The framing right now is suspicious inconsistencies. So the mother is going to be looked at in a very unique way, very similar to the Emmanuel Harrow case, Rebecca and Jake. Cases like Casey Anthony have primed the public to be suspicious of mothers in child death crisis or cases. Cases like Casey Anthony have primed the public to be suspicious of mothers in child death cases. And social media spreads outrage fast, sometimes before facts are confirmed. So again, I'm putting these questions out there, but we don't have the answers yet. But these are good questions that we're going to want to know the answers to. Could medical conditions complicate cause of death? Autopsy may show pre-existing conditions like asthma, heart defects that made the children more vulnerable. Raises questions. Heat stroke, the only factor here? That's what we're trying to figure out. And could alter charges if the defense argues a medical collapse occurred first. What precedent do past hot car cases set? Parents have faced outcomes ranging from life sentences to no charges at all. Differences often hinge on intent, past history, and public pressure. And looking at Texas, specific rulings will matter. Some states are harsher than others. And how do investigators handle public suspicion while facts are pending? And these are questions I'll maybe have my guest on and we can discuss it more. Chef Salazar's phrasing, inconsistency walks the line between transparency and not prejudicing the case, which I think was good. Public already suspects foul play, but investigators must avoid rushing charges without forensic proof. And communication strategy is key. Too little info fuels rumor. Too much info risks case integrity. And then I got 5 questions for the stage-related outcomes, if this was stage. Could the hot car have been used to cover up another case or another cause of death? Autopsy can reveal signs inconsistent with heat stroke, for example, bruising, toxins, or suffocation. Investigators compare body conditions with expected markers of vehicular hypothermia. And if death occurred earlier, staging the bodies in the car could disguise timing. What would investigators look for if they suspected staging? Forensics inside the car. Were car seats buckled? Were doors locked, unlocked? Timeline mismatch. Do estimated times of death match her reported discovery time? That's, again, 5 hours gap at 3 p.m. So from 10 a.m. to 3 p.m. Environmental inconsistencies, temperature readings versus how long bodies were in the car, and external injury, signs of trauma not caused by heat. Could the inconsistencies Sheriff Salazar mentioned point towards staging? If her statements conflict with video or forensic data that may suggest deliberate misdirection, claiming the children were last seen indoors at 10 a.m. could be an attempt to distance herself from direct responsibility. Again, there's that 5 hour gap. What happened in that 5 hours? And not just what she was doing, what happened to those kids in that 5 hours? Investigators may interpret these as either stress-induced errors or purposeful cover-up. And how likely is it for parents to stage hot car deaths? Rare. Most hot car fatalities are unintended, but documented cases exist where caregivers attempted to disguise homicide or extreme neglect as forgotten baby tragedies, and staging offers a plausible accidental explanation that could reduce public outrage or criminal liability, which we touched on before. And what would be the motive for staging? Avoiding harsher charges, murder versus negligence, hiding other abuse or neglect history, and shaping a sympathetic narrative, devastated parent who forgot, instead of a criminal one. And how do investigators disprove staging if suspected? If suspected, autopsy precision, internal organ damage, dehydration levels. This one's hold on. Guys, you have to forgive me with this word, but it's PETECHIAE, but it's basically from suffocation or toxin. So, pitachai. I got to figure out what that word is. And then you got digital evidence, car, black box, phone usage, surveillance video, witness patterns, neighbors noticing kids outside at times the mother said they weren't, and psychological interviews, contradictions in multiple retellings of the story. Let me just see how to say that word. I want to make sure, because again, I'm learning in the process too, guys, so bear with me. So the word I was talking about was putikii. Putikii. It refers to small red or purple spots that appear on the skin or mucous membranes due to minor bleeding from broken capillaries. So that's as if someone's trying to strangle you, and you can definitely see that in the eyes. So the autopsy, as I said, how would they do it? Digital evidence, car, black from witness patterns, neighbors noticing kids outside at times the mother said they weren't, psychological interviews, contradiction to multiple retellings of the story. Why these questions matter? Asking staging-related angles allows us to go beyond just a tragic incident versus negligence and into the darker possibility of intentional deception. It reflects why law enforcement's careful when they say inconsistencies, because staging is always a consideration when the story and the evidence don't line up. And I thought of staging the moment the sheriff said there's inconsistencies. But guys, there's a lot here. I'm throwing a lot your way. There's a lot here to discover as we move forward. But I will now follow this case as well. I gave us a good thing to start from. Let's fill up those comments. Let's answer some of those questions. What are your thoughts? What's hitting you the hardest from this story? I mean, are we seeing something very similar to the Emmanuel Harrow case? I mean, what's going on with our children? It's upsetting. But as always, guys, the show is Tear Talk. I'll follow up on this and get back to you soon. Stay safe, everyone.